Hello, everyone. My name is Eric DeHaan, and I'm the Director of Alumni Relations at Seoul Foreign School in Seoul, Korea. And the picture you see behind me is the brand new high school of Seoul Foreign School. SFS, if you're not familiar, is a 110-year-old school, and 2022 will be our 110th anniversary. And it has a long tradition of providing education for all kinds of children across many different countries. This year we have 54 different countries represented, and many students coming way back when from missionary families and international type families and whatnot. And it's our pleasure today to introduce one of our graduates, Brooks Frazier. Brooks is going to be sharing with us about his experience at SFS and about the book that he has written about his time following that. We will have time for questions, so if you have a question along the way, if you want to put it into the chat, that would be fine as well. And we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, Brooks. Brooks.
Thank you, Eric. I'm here.
Yeah, Brooks, if you could tell us a bit about your time at SFS, how long were you there? When did you graduate?
Well, I entered in 1969. I graduated in 71. Hurrah!
And your time there, how was it that you were in Korea at that time?
Well, I moved there because my father moved there. And my father was an exploration geologist. He was with a big American petroleum company, Gulf Oil. Mm-hmm. Now, Gulf Oil already had a big footprint in Korea by the time we arrived. They had refining, specialty lubricants, oils, distribution. I mean, there were kids already from Gulf already going to the school, Eric. Mm-hmm. But my dad brought something that was completely new. As an exploration geologist, they were looking for new oil fields offshore in the Yellow Sea. And I have to say, as a result of that effort, they were the first company to ever drill offshore in the Yellow Sea.
Wow, interesting. Did you ever go out to the rig with him or that type of thing?
Gosh, no, I did at other times. That's a darn good question. I did work at the Pusan, a base they had. They moved bases around a little bit, and I did work at that base for a summer. But my father always, since I was young, my first job I remember was at 8 years old. This isn't child labor. It's just my dad helping me out. Was working in the warehouses and learning the walk the talk and talk the talk of the business.
Interesting. Okay. Do you have certain memories of SFS, those 2 years that you were there?
Oh man, those memories, the takeaways, right? There was one pretty profound one, Eric. It was the sheer timing of that quality institution into my life that saved me. I have to tell you, saved me. I think you pause on that, like, what the heck do you mean? Well,
yeah, right. I'm waiting. We're waiting.
Yeah. Like the 13 years approximately prior to that, I was raised in 3 different African countries. And we moved into Africa for the first time in the early 50s, almost a decade after the Second World War. And again, the world was moving freely. People were moving about, same as in Africa. So, the young specialists with their young families were accepting these long-term assignments in faraway places, and their respective governments, NGOs, companies, religious groups, organizations of all types just tried like heck to keep up with the influx of kids, trying to provide schooling. There was no quality Seoul Foreign School waiting there for them. This stuff was like thrown together. A best example I have of a cobbled together situation was when my 5th and 6th grade in Mogadishu, Somalia.
Mm-hmm.
It was a converted camel barn. They took 3 of the stalls and they made classrooms out of them that handled all the kids from grade 1 to grade 6. Now, since I was the upper class, in the 5th and 6th grade, they gave us a separate classroom. There were 3 of us. The teacher was a USAID volunteer that wasn't even supposed to be teaching. We still had the water troughs in the classrooms where we put our erasers and our chalk, and they still had iron rings on the walls. But I didn't complain. I was being raised in Africa. I mean, come on. In wild Africa sometimes. I was in fact becoming a bit too wild and a bit too free and a bit too independent. But I didn't know that until I went to Seoul Foreign School. Because what I learned in Africa was literally the wonder of the world, adventure and exploration. I didn't know about this scholastic stuff, Seoul Foreign School was a shudder to my soul. Like they talked about things like homework.
Okay.
I mean, this was a place that was accustomed to teaching. It had been around for a long time, and I needed that. Eric, it saved me because those were critical last years that I could have been saved from 10th, 11th, 12th grade. And I had dreams, I had role models sitting around the living room in those wildest parts of Africa, and these interesting, intelligent people, and I wanted to be like them. And then what I learned quickly at Seoul Foreign School was awareness that I needed to catch up, awareness that I needed some structure. I learned quickly a little bit of discipline and maturity, and I have to say, Seoul Foreign School, thank you. Literally, thank you. You're the rep of that school right now. Thank you. Because those last years helped place a keel that at least set me in the right direction.
So after you left SFS, how did you, what was your educational and career path then?
That's a heck of a question. But I didn't have a really clear idea what I wanted to do. Some people know what they want to do. I followed the traditional path. High school, move into institution of higher learning, get a job with a good company, work on your career path along the way, maybe get married and have kids. We all have great role models that have followed that formula. It didn't work for me. I found that I was lost. I had that keel, but I was lost. And a bit of a culture shock as well in my own country. I'd never lived in the U.S. before. And I knew that after bumbling along there, I needed to change. And because I was already a pretty well-traveled little kid, well, 19, come on. Alexander the Great started out at his armies at 17, they say, or something like that. I mean, I was not feeling my way. So I knew I needed to find myself. What a famous expression, right? And because I'd been around a little bit, I needed exotic in that formula. So I found myself at 20 years old, 1973, alone and by myself in Southeast Asia, starting out in Singapore. Put myself there, not accepted by my parents. They were leery that I'd end up on a surfer's beach in Australia, or, oh my gosh, in an opium den in the Himalayas. I mean, a lot was happening at that time. It was 1973, the Vietnam War is hot and heavy. So I knew that. And I desperately wanted to prove to myself as a young person. And I wanted to prove to some of my best role models that were my parents and dear friends that I can do this. I mean, I can say that I'm going to go out and find myself and do it. So I gave myself 3 really important rules. Become more of a man,
Mm-hmm.
make sure everything I got myself involved in were going to be solid foundation blocks for my future, and see if I can make some money. Now, I have to tell you that I stuck to that. Within a year, I left, and I didn't know that it would be adventure upon adventure. Just by carving out that time from the traditional path, it exposed me to so many things and so many things that could have led me astray, but I stuck to it. And the thing that changed my life was being introduced into the wood ship world of wood ships. And I've been able to have been a sailor on one of those, which was a dream. But that comes a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
What happened is that I left that gap year. I had an enthusiasm I never had before. I was able to enter a different college in Marietta College in the state of Ohio. I got the degree. I captured the degree that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to find a great job. Fantastic. I mean, I was so proud. I was in the mix. I was in the business world.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a but. Aren't there buts? Aren't there always the big buts? I had in my soul, I always knew it. I had this adventure bug that had clawed its way into my internal soul. And I never knew how vulnerable I was to that attraction until I received a call one day. And the call went something like this. Remember I told you that I met somebody in Singapore during that gap year that invited me to go on those sailing trips around the Java Sea. This was adventure. There I am. He's in the past. I'm working. I'm moving. The company likes me. I like them. And I received this call.
Mm-hmm.
It goes something like this. Brooks, I see you've done what you promised. A degree with a good company, you're moving. But I have a proposition for you. We're building a new Chinese junk rig vessel in the shipyards in Amsterdam. We need to outfit it, sail across the Atlantic, deliver it to the Caribbean. We're going to compete against Mike Burke and his barefoot windjammer cruises, but we're going to do something different. And Brooks, I need you to help me. I need you to be part of the crew. I know you can help us find those new beaches, find those new wrecks, find those new reefs that we can offer to our new clientele. We're going to do something different. Will you join me? What do you do? What do you do about something like that? I gave in. So for the next year and a half, 3 great sailing ships later, adventure on top of adventure, couple more Atlantic crossings. Oh my gosh, tough, tanned, lung dive down to over 50 feet. Life was going well for me. But a tragedy happened. We lost a most beautiful tall ship, 130 foot on deck, all wood, 3-masted gaff rig schooner, lost from underneath us, rescued at sea. That started me to think about, to begin to commence to get on with understanding that my adventure bug had been fulfilled. So I went back, found a new job, stayed with that company for about 17 years. 11 of those years, my wife and I were assigned to foreign postings on an expatriate package. I mean, come on, life was good. Venezuela, Tunisia, Ecuador, Turkey, Russia, Germany, Kazakhstan. Man, these were pushing all my buttons. And but there's always the but, And I think I've been talking for a long time. Can you ask another question, maybe?
Sure. So the different places that you went to, how did that impact you living in all those different areas? Did you feel like you needed to settle down, or how did you feel as a third culture person like that?
Well, when you're raised doing that, I mean, I went overseas at 3.5 years old. I didn't know anything else. That's why I had a bit of a culture shock in my own country. I think it was, I had to consider my wife's situation as well, because I'm in the mix, you know, I'm traveling around, I'm picking up these different languages. It was easy for me. I did find out that I was learning something that was very special by staying with that company about 17 years. It gave me the confidence and the courage to take all these travels and this massive network that I had developed to step out on my own. So with my gray hairs, you know, I was well over 45 and I started my own company called Caspian Steps. And we focused on manufactures of very specialized chemicals, additives that were environmentally acceptable, because this whole world has been changing towards the environment. And because of my background, I knew how things could fit. And with my network, I knew how things could fit. And because we all want to feel that, I mean, everybody on this earth wants to have clean air and clean water and clean environment.
Sure.
So when you're actively working and understanding how changes can happen, how replacements can happen, not only does it make you feel good, I learned that it's also good business, because things have to continue on. We still need to have our energy. So if you can have a smaller footprint, if you can still drill and you have discharges into the water and all the bad news that the oil patch has, being so intimately involved with the oil patch, I knew how important it was to be environmentally sane about all that. And that means good business. And so what happened with my business, representing these certain clients and being mostly focused on the Caspian region, Central Asia, and Turkey. Well, COVID came along. And Mr. COVID, I think, has affected everybody who's listening. I mean, it has affected us. It dramatically affected Caspian Steps because I needed to have free movement, free decision-making of when to show up in Ataral, Kazakhstan, or I mean, that was my power. And as soon as I could not freely move, well, then I had to take advantage of these changes and look for the opportunities therein. And I was able to find ways that I continue in business with my partners. But I also found a way, Eric, to write a book.
Right, yeah. Yeah, tell us about the book.
Yeah, Oakum Strands. Can you see it? I want to talk about these masks right here.
Okay.
These Chinese junk masks. Okay, the whole book is about that gap year. That I realized that though I was 20, and it ended when I was 21, and what I'd learned from my time in Africa and my graduating from high school in that great institution called Seoul Foreign School, I was able to use all my skills, change my hats, all the tips and tricks that I'd learned as such a young man to make that an astounding success of being a gap year, not only finding myself, but changing my life and building the foundations of a future that I could go forward that I created. And that those adventures that I didn't know would happen as soon as I set foot into Central Asia as a young man that was not tied to the traditional route. I cut that, right? I took that gap year. Now that takes some courage. And because I was there and available and with enough wisdom, even as a young man, that I could recognize certain opportunities needed grabbed, I did. And that those turned out to be amazing stories that are the basis of this book, but were also the substance of the verbal stories that I told all my friends, family, and colleagues for more than 40 years. And they would, it was so humbling, and it makes you feel good when people say, "Wow, that's a really great story, Brooks. How did you find yourself in Singapore? How did you get to Singapore at 20 years old? How were you able to place yourself inside of these adventures? Write it down. These are things that movies are made out of. Write a book, Brooks." Well, I mean, inspiration like that, just excited me. And I finally had a catalyst from a dear friend of mine. I see him here on this site. Dave Johnson, hi. He, during a talk one day, it gave me the something is a catalyst, an inspiration to just, the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, come on, how stupid is that? But it's not stupid. It's mathematics, straws add up, and pretty soon that broke the camel's back. Pretty soon you have enough inspiration to do something like write a book. So when I told these stories verbally, I have to move around a little bit, it's my sickness, I move, I have gestures and intonations, but to put it down in text was tough. But this is a group of, it's not a long book. It's 14 chapters. Each chapter is a separate adventure story that has an adventure that starts in Singapore. The Java Sea ends in Singapore, bolting back to the States with all that experience, finishing school and carrying on. That's what Oakum Strands is.
Yeah,
about.
can you give us one story, if you would? One of your favorites, just a little taste.
Exploration. Singapore. Ancient city. Communities that you can walk through have been there since antiquity. Some of the religious rituals are astounding. There's 3 chapters of that. But the thrust of the book and the reason why it was written was that I had this desire to explore Singapore Harbor. So in order to do that, I hired a harbor taxi boat for the day, just the driver and me. And I had acquired these charts. So there I am sitting in the bow, charts on my lap. Go here, go there, and the different interactions we had with all those ships, is there's 1,000 ships that anchor there at night. Out in Singapore Strait into the outer harbor, and then you have these inner harbors where you have breakwaters where the small craft can come, mostly sailing ships, mostly junks for safe harbor. And so after moving around these different ships and the conversations you'd have with crews from around the world and the things that they'd hand over and give you, it's an incredible experience. But I had a goal, Eric. I wanted, with the help of the access of this taxi, to putter around inside that inner harbor that I'd looked at. It's right near the famous Raffles Hotel. Or it was back then. It's nothing like that now. I would look upon that harbor and I realized, look at those Chinese junks. If I would just have a chance to be able to have a conversation with some of those people, develop a relationship, would it be great if I would be invited to go on an actual sailing ship, a sailing trip, on a junk, on a traditional route that they take? Wouldn't that be a great way to finish my gap year? But there's another but. As we were coming in from the outer harbor, and the outline of Singapore is there, and that inner harbor is quickly getting bigger and bigger, and behind the breakwater is this forest of masts gently undulating there in the water. Standing proud above all those masts were two others, unusual. And I was excited to see what they were. So as we entered that harbor and all these Chinese junks, just what I wanted, suddenly there in front of me appeared this calendar picture perfect view of this two-masted gaff-rigged Western-style schooner beckoning me. So of course my direction to the driver was go forth. But my father gave me that inspiration when we were young. We first moved into North Africa on the outskirts of the Sahara. You know, we didn't have cell phones back then. There was no internet. There were no computers. There was no TV. We had to learn how to communicate and play with ourselves. Remember those days? And I can remember that my father started this lust inside of me, because he was a tall, impressive man, and he would read to us to try to give us some entertainment, these adventures of Captain Horatio Hornblower that took place around around the time of the Napoleonic Wars, the great battle at Trafalgar. And that was a setting, and he would pace back and forth and take on different voices for different characters. And on the dining room table would be these maps and atlases where he would instantly show us where the action was actually taking place around the world. I was hooked, man. I wanted to go sailing. So my goal was to get on that Chinese junk, but there in front of me was this two-masted schooner that fit. It was beckoning me. So that's the chapter, Eric. Although we did illegally explore the volcano of Anak Krakatoa, that on the sea charts we had was strictly prohibited. Entry not allowed. And if we had been caught by the Indonesian Navy, we would all have been in deep, deep kimchi. It was off limits. Right after that, we tricked pirates from boarding us. Just a scheme we had as young, naive 20 to 25-year-olds, because the owner had to fly back in Surabaya. Of course, we ran aground and the miraculous actions that took us off. But it was that afternoon, that life-changing afternoon, where the weird sequence of events, how I even got invited to get aboard that vessel, and how I found myself around a contraption in the bow that they were trying to fix, and somehow Brooks solved the problem, and I was a hero. Invited to sail the boat around to northern Singapore and put it in a safe harbor, because the day after the owner had to leave Singapore, get back to New York because he was late. He gave me the keys to the boat. I knew him less than 24 hours. That plopped me, inside that tight group that's hard to enter of wood traditional boat sailors. And that changed my life, Eric.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so much adventure. As you think about, young people who would watch this video, high schoolers, SFSers, young alumni, what advice would you give them for their life and their future?
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. I have some. And everybody who's listening knows all these. It's just that if I can word them, I think in a way that gives these well-known features a little bit more respect, a little bit more understanding, that if y'all would work on them a little bit and understand their value, it will help you reach your objectives, your dreams. So take these common things that you've known. I want to give you three. The first is something I'm really a strong believer about, and these are the foundation blocks that are being built up around us. And as soon as we're born into this world, little baby humans, foundation blocks are thrown up around us very quickly by our parents, by the environment, by the people around us, religious leaders, what's given to us, you know, all that's coming to this little child. Foundation blocks are being laid. My advice is, as soon as anybody has the chance, to try to take control of what those blocks look like and try to design and place and plan. So what comes out of your inner soul, your heart, your dreams, if you can work on building your foundation, like look at that block and say, I have a joy of language. Have I learned a new language? And is there a block there showing that I'm giving enough of my time towards charity? Where are my blocks indicating where I'm continuing in my education? You know, where are the blocks that are helping me reach my goals? Not my parents' goals, my goals. These are things that people can take charge of and be careful about. That's easy. Number two is a combination of two words I've talked about already a bit. It's that within change come your best opportunities. And we're surrounded always by friends and family and others that shy away from change, are afraid from change, don't like change. But change is inevitable. We need to embrace change. We need to understand that within change probably come our best opportunities. So people that are complaining about life's boring, I don't have enough good things going on, it may be because you don't have enough change in your life. You may need to move towards change because that's where the opportunities are. Think about that. And the last, Eric, are two attributes that I've recognized in all people that are respect, leaders, successful. And these are simple things, but can be worked on. This is confidence and how to portray confidence. For the young ones out there, that's all what interviews are about, job interviews. You know, are you confident? And if you say you're confident, what do you have in what do you have in your background that makes you so confident? I mean, it is that confidence that we need to have to be able to move forward. And to cap it all off and to end this is our internal courage, because change is difficult. And taking on new assignments and new challenges is difficult. So we cannot shy away, and that takes courage to get us across the finish line. That's about all I have to say about that.
Wonderful. Excellent, Brooks. I'd love to take some questions. I think there's a few of your friends in this group, and maybe that's understatement, but maybe questions. Just unmute yourself and ask the question.
Eric, this is Bill Gwaltney in Hawaii. I don't have a question really. I just like to say that some of Brooks's closest friends will probably not ask him a question, because that thing about the jail in Singapore, that's not really important.
Hey, Brooks.
Yes.
Sally Hubbard.
Hey,
Classmate.
Sally.
How you
Sally.
doing? Yeah. How you doing?
Great to see you, girl.
Hey, in your yearbook, you wrote your quote. Do you remember what you wrote?
Yes, something about like the world is a great book, and if you don't venture
Those
one
who
place,
never stray from one place, read only a page. Yep.
yes.
I'm looking at your picture right there.
Oh, that's great.
Look at that! Look at that handsome boy.
I know.
He had hair.
Where did all the curls go?
Oh yeah. Come on. It's all that jazzing I did. All that lotion I put on to make it curl.
Yeah, all that product. Yeah, you look great, Brooks. I loved your book. I absolutely
you read
loved
it, good girl.
I absolutely did. And the picture of you climbing the palm tree with the arrow pointing to this little person way, I thought, yeah, that's something the Brooks I remember would do. Absolutely, something that he would do. So yeah.
Thank you. So great. Nice to hear you.
It's good to see you.
Wonderful.
Who
Hey,
else has a
Brooks.
question? Michael?
Is this
Hey, Brooks.
Michael?
It's Michael. Are
Senor.
you still playing music, Brooks?
I do. I have to release my
Cool.
stress by playing percussion. All the neighbors know that I'm here because they hear it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I also kind of tingle on a steel drum.
Not surprised at all, Brooks.
How about you? How about you? What's your musical instrument, sir?
No, this is your show, Brooks. This isn't mine.
Okay, great. Great. I did want to mention one thing, please, if you don't mind. I want to talk about the symbolism of Oakum Strands, because I think we all can relate to that. It's like the spokes on a wheel. I mean, Oakum Strands, Oakum is simply the definition of the strong fibers that are found in certain plants, jute and certain hemp plants that have been the source of rope from antiquity. You can go to your hardware store anywhere in the world and find a hemp or jute rope. But the mariners learned a long time ago that if you treat those strands with pine oil and a little bit of light pine pitch, it makes it waterproof. And when you combine them together and roll them up like grabbing a bit of a ponytail, and if you twist that together and work it down inside of the seams, because if you think about it, wood boats are nothing but wooden planks and boards and beams and timber of all sorts that have these seams. How are you able to go to sea at something with so many gaps in it? And that's the beauty of Oakum. They've adapted it, so they found a way to force it inside those seams. And that's where that dying art is of those craftsmen that know how to get it inside of there and then seal it off with tar. It's a wonderful thing. And it's symbolism, because all of us have so many experiences that build our character and our strengths. It's not one, it's the combination of all.
Someone asked in the chat, what was your favorite expat assignment?
Good question.
I think the most wondrous, boy, what a great question. The most wondrous differences inside of one country would be Ecuador. You drop down into the Amazon on one side, the Amazon, going up those Andes to the snow, and down on the Pacific side, which is also jungle, but they call it cloud jungle. Because it's where those clouds from the Pacific just pack up against the mountains, and they drop their moisture there. And then you drop down to the Pacific coast with all that wonder of seafood. And it includes the Galapagos. Wonderland, Ecuador. I would say that.
Great. What other questions do we have for Brooke?
Could I just make a quick comment? I remember Brooks telling me the story of the vessel and being rescued at sea, and his time doing that. And I stopped and I asked him a question, and I said, Brooks, what did you learn from that experience? And he stopped and he hesitated and thought for a moment. And then he said, nothing is guaranteed. And I always remembered that. I mean, he lost clothing, he lost everything that he was there with. And he just came away with the shirt on his back. And, I thought it was something that I always remember.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Matt. That was a beautiful ship on this earth. It was 130 foot on deck, all wood, 3-masted, gaff-rigged schooner. We lost it at sea, out from underneath us. We were rescued at sea. Now, I had a little bit more than was just on my back, because the captain said those who had a sextant could bring it. Those that had a log could bring it, but nothing else, except water and food. Scary times.
Someone asked in the chat, fun question, what was your favorite beer in Indonesia? And how did your how did you make provisions your ship in Indonesia?
What is it, Bintang beer? Is that the right beer for Indonesia? There were two main beers. I think one was Bintang and the other was a little bit frowned upon because it had a preservative in it. I think it was formaldehyde back then. But I remember the beers would come in big bottles like that, and it was a really nice bartering thing to pass over from ship to ship. And in Indonesian, the word for good was bagus, and you'd hand this over, and one of my chapters, actually, the second to the very last, has to do with liquor. When we had a really challenging tack, right? We picked out a Russian warship, of course, because we were dumb, and we sailed directly towards the center of this Russian ship, right up till we could see the rusty bolt holes until we tacked. And that moment was very sentimental for me because I was off duty. We'd done all the things, coiling down everything, and everybody else was working. And I sat there on the beer cooler, looking up at these Russian sailors who were looking down at me and all, binoculars. And every move I made, they reacted to. And that's a wonderful chapter. I hope you all can see it. About the little brief peace between warring nations at that time. Over sharing toasts, long distance toasts. But that was Bintang beer. I don't know who asked that question. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it Bintang beer? Hello, Gabe.
Someone asked,
Gabe,
did you try the clove cigarettes in Java?
Yeah, I did. I brought some back to Matt, who asked that earlier question. Back in the days when you'd experiment taking some tokes on a cigarette or whatever. I never turned out to be a smoker because it hurt my body. But back then, you'd walk along the streets of Singapore or Surabaya, and you would have these sellers, and they would have all kinds of cigarettes. You could buy one or six, or a half maybe. But the clove cigarettes were very common in Indonesia, especially.
Great. Other questions? Yeah.
Sally covered it.
Valerie,
Hey.
hello.
Hey,
Gosh, you and your mom and dad. Hi.
there's that.
It's always so amazing to hear your stories. So thank you for telling them. And my mom read the whole book and is passing it down to all of us. And we just, soaking it all in. And, when Joyce, Brooks' sister Joyce, used to tell me so many stories of your childhood and all these different countries. And I'm like, it's almost like taking different pieces of the puzzle and it's all coming together with your book. And I'm curious, when you were on those adventures, like, were you able to keep in touch with Keith and Joyce, or was it like you said goodbye and then when did you see them next, and in what ways were they with you? Yeah.
Gosh, as a mom and such a loving, giving person as you are, Valerie, you would ask a question like that. Now, I'll answer you as a young man at that time who was into my thing, trying to find my way. My parents had a really classic story when they thought that I was in Singapore. And the next thing was just a short little brief postcard from Darwin, Australia. Because I don't know if I told you, I gave myself 3 rules, right? Yeah, be a man and that stuff. So to make money, actually, I had to leave Singapore for about 5 months to work on a very tough offshore drilling rig that was very dangerous and very hard, but it was big bucks. So I needed to do that to fill my pocket. And so when I went to Darwin, they're trying to track me. And when later on, when I'd read my father's records, he kept very careful track of where I was. He was living vicariously through my little bit of information. And he would send messages showing these routes that I was taking, especially once I went sailing. But back then we didn't have the communication means, but I would send postcards. And my parents called them cryptic messages. Very cryptic. But I was out on my own, and I was determined to do that as such. Hey, Gabe, what is that sailing ship, sir? What's that vessel?
That is the Coast Guard bark Eagle.
Ah, yes, great.
So I sailed her across when I was a cadet, I was like 18 years old, from France to Nova Scotia as part of our first fourth class year. So I was along the top rail, the Gallant. That was me. I was there dousing sails in the middle of the Atlantic during a storm warning. So
explain dousing. Why would you have to douse a sail, sir?
So when you're sailing, right, you have all these sails, wonderful. It's super quiet and you're listing over and you're just, Then all of a sudden the storm hits and all of a sudden you list even more, which is bad, obviously. So you would start dousing from the top. You would start to douse sails from the top down, right? Because of that.
Douse means you're applying water to them.
Huh?
You're applying water?
Oh no, not dousing like throwing water, like dousing.
Right, thank you. Help me.
Roll, yeah. So you stay along the top, the very top rail here. You climb. I think like almost 300 feet. So we have to climb manually 300 feet straight up the mast.
Right.
And it's like this webbing. Yeah. So you better have some really good hand grips because you'll fall into your death. So when you get to the top, that's the first safety time you can clip in at the very top. You can actually clip in along the entire rail, thank God. And then there's like 4 on each side. 4 to 6 on each side, and you grab a whole bunch. You reach over. You're leaning, way over, and you got to grab as much sail. Everybody's right. Lift. Woof. And you pull
okay, so you're bringing in the sail.
Yeah, you're bringing it up.
You're okay.
Pull the sail up. Then you grab another whole set, and then you lift it straight up. And this evolution, sail evolution, you're just grabbing, pulling, grabbing, and pulling. Well, it is hard, but you imagine you're on a ship that's going, we were going like 20, well, not 20. I want to say like 15 knots, right? And there's a storm coming. So the winds are blowing, and it's even worse because you're 300 feet up above the deck. And the whole ship is just rocking and rolling. So you're trying to pull this up, not fall off, pull this up, not fall off, pull this up, not fall off, pull this up, not fall off. And it's raining, of course, and it's cold. You're in the middle of the ocean, and since it's raining, there's no, it's cloud cover, right? So it's dark, it's night. There is no horizon, none. There's nothing. So you could literally look around. There is no light anywhere except for the people next to you that have their little safety lights, right? So, but nobody else, there's no light anywhere else. And then maybe the ship at the bottom, 300 feet down, the ship has a couple lights. But the water is pitch black, and it's just pitch black. It was the most amazing and scariest time I've ever had, though. You're in the middle of like space, and it's just an adrenaline rush because you had to run up there, douse the sail. Okay, we got the Gallant, we're done. Well, that's a Royal. It's the Royal. Sorry. Then the next one down. That's the Gallant. Got to climb down. Start the whole process again. Bring that up. Oh, right. Yeah. So as we're dousing, you're reducing the sail area, right? So this is all gathered at the top.
Thank you for correcting us on that dousing. I was expecting you were throwing friggin' water on it or something.
Like 30 minutes later, we're down. You've reduced the sail area at the top, and you have this one, and then this one, and then you're like, okay, leave the last two. And you're like, oh my God, I'm done. And you can climb down. It's raining, and now you got the 30 foot swells you have to deal with, right? I'm sure you've, and then it's like, we're up. Hi, Mrs. Brooks. So since we're all up,
thank you, Gabe. Good
You go to the
night.
front of the ship, you go to the bow of the ship, right? So this is something, if you've never done it before, you go to the front of the ship, the bow of the ship, when you have 30-foot swells, which is amazing, by the way. Because that ship is just bang, you know, and the whole thing shudders, and then you come up with another bang, and the whole ship
Okay,
shudders.
Gabe.
Dave,
this
I
is
think
a
we need
Brooks
another
show.
series with you.
It's awesome. Well, you go to the front of the ship and you jump. So you jump, right? Everybody jumps, and then the ship kind of falls away from you, and you're yeah, it's the anti-gravity chamber, because you fall and the ship falls, boom, and then you all land together with the ship, and then it comes up.
Gabe, good night.
Sorry,
Gabe,
it was
good
just
night.
Thank you, Gabe.
It's just
Brooks,
Thank
amazing.
you, Gabe. Good night.
Brooks, tell me, where's the best?
That's pretty
Talk to you
funny.
later.
I'll mute now so you can view the lovely ship.
Thank
Where's
you.
Brooks? Where's the
Oh,
best
nice.
place to get your book?
Oh, come on, it's pretty easy. I have a website called www.brooksfrazier.com. Check it out.
It's also on Amazon, I believe.
Yeah, it's actually, I just Googled recently Oakum Strands, and it was in Walgreens, it was in Target. It's pretty cool. It's been a pretty cool exercise. But just a quick little finale to this. What
Yeah,
Gabe
final
was-
words, Brooks.
Final words, thank you. When a ship is moving like that, actually, every now and then everything will fit just right. And it'll be abrupt enough that it'll ring the bell. And that's a pretty cool thing. It'll ring the bell by itself. So everybody, hey, I know you're under a time limit, Eric. Thanks for pulling this together. And all the friends I see on this site is fantastic. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Brooks. And we're certainly proud of you as one of our alums and of SFS, and give a big shout out.
Thank you. Thank you very much, y'all. Bye.
Bye.